Good evening and thanks for joining us. In cities across this country, Canadians are making their voices heard in a powerful display of unity against police brutality and systemic racism. A big crowd has gathered at Jack Pool Plaza in Vancouver, and from Halifax to Toronto and in Ottawa. Thousands filled the streets in solidarity with the protests in the U.S. and to make the point that Black Lives Matter in Canada too. In the U.S., protesters stretching into a second weekend, the wave of outrage sweeping across the country after the death of George Floyd under the knee of a white officer. Here on Parliament Hill, thousands gathered to stand in solidarity before marching through the streets. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took part in it too and took a knee. Our Abigail Bimman is in the midst of it all tonight. Abigail.
Well, Donna, it's a very large rally by Ottawa standards. Thousands and thousands of people came out to show their support. There are still thousands of people here behind me at the Human Rights Memorial. Another thing unusual for Ottawa, businesses boarded up in advance of this demonstration, something we haven't seen in recent memory. But everything here stayed peaceful, and that was the organizers' intent all along. People we spoke to said they came here because it's important to send a message that things need to change, that racism needs to end, and that they want a different and better world for their children. Here's what some of them had to say.
Really moving. It's just like seeing that not everyone's bad, and just how people do want to stand up and make a difference. It just warms my heart.
Man who can't see is in the blindest is the one who choose not to. I just feel like everyone should know that there is problems in our society today, but at the same time I feel like all of us together can make it happen and make everything great and make the world better again.
I feel like what we're doing today is a lot bigger, and we can worry about COVID after, but this is a really big issue that needs to be settled, honestly.
I want people to understand that we are people too. We have hopes, we have dreams. Our color is not a weapon. We are who we are, and we're proud to be who we are. We will stand in these streets day and night to be heard.
Now, a lot of the faces we saw in the crowd today were not Black, and that's important to note because there was some discord among organizers and some other Black community groups here in Ottawa. They had some concerns over safety and also some COVID-19 concerns, and so a message went out to the Black community here in Ottawa not to show up for today's event. There was also opposition to police being in attendance. The Ottawa Police Service is aware of that community pushback, but said it's their job to give a space for people to grieve and to be heard and to do that safely. The police officers I saw in the crowd were taking a knee along with demonstrators. So still thousands of people here. They just took a knee again a moment ago. Lots of people trying to take some COVID-19 safety precautions, wearing masks as examples, but many people we spoke with said that that racism is as much of a concern, if not more important, than this health pandemic. Donna?
All right, Abigail Bimman in Ottawa, thank you. Thousands of people also took to the streets in Toronto today to show solidarity with Americans. As Eric Sorensen explains, they're calling for change in this country, too.
The march was large and it was peaceful. In Canada's biggest city, store owners weren't taking chances, but the participants were almost universally determined to send a non-violent message that racism does exist and must be addressed.
And I believe that in this moment, that it is a perfect storm. We are all paying attention, maybe because of COVID-19, but certainly because of George Floyd and the horrific things that we witnessed on social media and on the television screen. And, to say enough.
There's nothing simple about organizing such a demonstration these days. The pandemic is still with us, and social distancing did not seem to be carefully observed here. Certain advocacy groups for Blacks took a pass on supporting this event, and some are critical that police were included in the planning. Still, Toronto's police chief and other officers took a knee to show solidarity.
What we hope will be a lasting platform for change through peace and communication between the community members and our civic leaders.
For some, marches here are not just in solidarity with what's happening in the United States, but reflect the unique history of race relations in this country.
In Canada, the issue is broader. You cannot address race in this country and not include the treatment of Indigenous peoples.
It's literally once a week we hear about an Indigenous person being brutalized by a police officer. And so for decades, we've had a problem with anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism by police.
For blacks in Toronto, the relationship with police is strained. There are practical proposals to outfit officers with body cameras.
To make sure that we are doing everything we can to fast-track body cameras for all Toronto police officers.
But it will take time to establish trust.
I have a twin brother who actually had cops invade his house and put guns to his face and totally be way too violent.
Addie Stewart says blacks in Canada still do not experience the equality other Canadians take for granted.
This multicultural paradise, nah, we're not there yet. We are so not there yet. There's so much more work to do.
Other marches are happening across Canada over the weekend to raise awareness that racism, individual and systemic, still exists, and that Canadians first have to accept that, then push for change. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.